You remember the quote, "Better to light a candle than to curse the darkness"? That quote has been attributed to Eleanor Roosevelt. Others have said it's Confucius. I go with the Rambam version, oftentimes, that is, Kitzat min ha'or, migaresh harbe min ha'choshech. Just a little bit of light dispels much darkness. But the first time that quote is attributed in any type of printed book, according to one research website that I was looking at, is in a 1907 collection of sermons that were given on American soil called The Supreme Conquest and Other Sermons Preached in America, put together by William Watkinson. And that particular quote, "It's better to light a candle than to curse the darkness," was included in a sermon called The Supreme Conquest, the Invincible Strategy. The strategy goes something like this, according to Watkinson. Denunciatory rhetoric is so much easier and cheaper than good works, and proves a popular temptation. Yet it is far better to light the candle than to curse the darkness. This was offered to many, many communities as a point of inspiration through Watkinson's work when he printed that sermon manual for religionists of all types who so appreciated American soil. His ask was for people to, through their various religious communities, modes, and modalities, embrace the notion that he called good works, or that in our terms we call mitzvot, active commandments, aseh mitzvot, proactive commandments, and lo ta'aseh mitzvot, refraining from, avoiding all kinds of unethical behavior or forbidden foods, let's say, in order to allow them to work on providing for our lives meaning and cultural attachment. Whatever your way of bringing that ethical goodness into the world, light the match and try to avoid very seriously the denunciatory rhetoric that is both easy and cheap. The world is filled with so much denunciatory rhetoric, and talk is pretty cheap. I'm proud of our community when we're doing the mitzvot that we're commanded. I'm proud of our community when we take seriously the chesed endeavors that we're invested in, like reading to children in the neighborhoods that are the least served by families who have people to read to children. Like the chesed we do when we go to the soup kitchens and the food pantry, the New York Common Pantry, or the Project Or, and we meet the people from all backgrounds, races, colors, and creeds. And we provide whatever energies we can for the routine daily endeavor of living that is at the core of good and decent society. So important was the idea of light in our tradition that, of course, or Zarua, light being sown for the righteous, is at the very core of our congregation's name. That metaphor was not lost on the prophets of the Bible or historians who recorded the great victories of the Maccabees in the Talmud. As a matter of fact, this week, it's Parshat Bahalotecha. The Torah knows that it's beyond just the mitzvot and instructions about how to light the lights in the portable tabernacle that Aaron receives. It's beyond just those instructions and Aaron's actual lighting that the Torah describes when it says, you are to bring light to the world each day through this ritual act. For the ritual acts as a symbolic kind of inspiration, a fire, a match, a striking of a match, so that goodness can be part of what lights up our world. The Haftarah today is taken from the book of Zechariah. This Shabbat, we will read about the rededication of the second temple when the high priest named Joshua took it upon himself to continue the ritual, having some, I think, doubts about whether or not ritual life and a lighting of the actual menorah and of doing the kind of ritual mitzvot, what that could mean in a world that might have needed a different response. That high priest Joshua might have been like Judah Maccabee, the military leader, the rebel, the guerrilla warfare fighter against the hegemonic power of the Greco-Hellenistic rulers of the time, the Seleucid Empire. But it was through the dedication to the ritual of the temple, through the rebuilding of the Beit HaMikdash, the sacred precinct in Jerusalem, and through the making beautiful and noticing the beauty of the menorah within the temple itself, that the Jewish people were inspired to envision a world where each person brings his or her light, does what's necessary and good, and creates a more harmonious world as a partner with God and with each other. The Haftarah, interestingly, does not end with the rededication of the temple itself, but in a certain sense foreshadows the rededication of the Maccabees, who after a military engagement and the use of force were instructed, at least in the rabbi's age and era, with the same words that were used for inspiration by Zechariah in Second Temple times. Those words were not by might and not by power, but by spirit alone. What did he mean by spirit? Did he mean a sense of spirituality, beholding, looking, gazing at, investigating the light and all its dynamic color, the flame that burned and the how it dances in the wind? He might have thought about it in that meditative kind of way. But I'm convinced what the verse means is that spirit of companionship, that spirit of camaraderie, that spirit of solidarity, that spirit of the great union of families of the earth coming together to build a society that reflects more the holiness of the light, its shadows dancing on the walls of sacred precincts. When the prophet tells us it's not by might, not by power, but by spirit, he lifts up a sense that we're all working towards a greater project wherein all the families of the earth can create their own temples, wherein each of the sacred temples of the peoples of the earth, lights can be kindled. and goodness can prevail through the acts of worshipers who come to be inspired again and again to do what lighting a match symbolizes. Refrain from cursing the darkness. Denunciatory rhetoric is cheap and easy. Finding the energy to add our own light into the world and build a society of goodness, that's what, not by might and not by power, but by spirit alone, means when we say it at Hanukkah and when we say it during our reading of Parshat Beha'alotecha, and what it means for Aaron to have taught us that daily work of lighting the lights again and again needs to be the way we consider stepping up to kindle the lights that are needed in our world of sometimes too much darkness. Shabbat Shalom.